Hello.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Yeah, going all right. How about you?
Yeah, not too bad. I just realised it's my turn this week, and I just sat down again. I was able to do it at 4 this morning, and then I kind of I moved away from the charts, but trying to get my daughter out the door. But I could have started. So sorry about that, mate. I'll start it from tomorrow.
Yeah, no drama, mate. All good. All
Um,
good. What's going on?
well, for about 2 months now, I've been trying to kind of manage this FTSE trade. We were looking for a breakdown, weren't we?
Yeah, kind of stalled a bit, hasn't it?
It's stalled. I mean, the good thing is that from the point that I did get in, it's come down probably about 50 pips. But because I'm looking for about 150, it's made things a little bit tricky. I'll show you what I've done. I feel like
It,
I
it
feel like
it doesn't look like it's over it at all, but it's just gone into well, consolidation, I suppose. But
yeah, it's gone into this hideous consolidation, and now because of that, because of and actually there's some positive here. Which is all the trades that I've got on this market are here. They're scattered up. Can you see my chart?
yep.
Yeah, these are the trades that I've got on all scattered up right now. And even though we're at this high end, because it's heavier weighted at the highs, um, actually on the month, I'm flat. Just got flat. Down at this area, it gets me flat. So I've just had to hedge. So I've just taken a long here, just to see if I can push up. Now, when it comes down to that, there's two things about the hedge. Firstly, it's a little bit high. I could have done with it a little bit lower. And the reason that I say that is that really with a hedge you need it to go up. So the hedge is there for protecting the short positions, but you need it to go up, because if it goes up from this point, then the hedge can go to break even, which means that if it comes back down again, the likelihood is it takes out the hedge and goes. Now, I could have said that here and it didn't happen, and here and it didn't happen. So that, there's nuance to that.
Mm.
But ultimately the idea is that you're not really trying to, or I'm not really trying to make any money out this hedge. I'm just trying to protect these shorts. So if the hedge pushes forward, it's better for me because it means I can put stops at break even, and then everything's absolutely flat. And then I can just sit and wait effectively. But what I will do, if the hedge pushes up, makes a higher low, and then goes, then I can make a little bit of money out of the hedge by sliding those stops higher and higher and higher. The other side of that is if it breaks down, it's not ideal, but it's not disastrous, because this trend is to the upside on the whole, and the market has been moving to the upside on the whole. So if it starts to come down, then I can start to just take off some of these positions, and rather than having the hedge long, the hedge from that point will start becoming a hedge short. And if it comes, what I'd be looking for is it to come back and touch this point, just take the hedge down, and then everything's fine from that point. So there's two ways that I'm going to have to look at this now, but it's just a bit irritating that it couldn't have broken down. I was basically looking for, well, I'll show you really what I was looking for. This monthly pivot or around this particular area, which would have given me effectively a couple of shorts done. That it would have taken this is a short here, this is a short here, this is a short here, and this is a short here. So it only left me with that one down there, which would have been well and truly balanced at that point. So I guess I'm still looking for that to potentially happen. But now at that point, if it does happen, when I take profit, I've still got this long now in the market. So I'm going to have to see if it can come down and start to bounce from that particular point, and then have to manage a long rather than having to manage a short. But as I say, it's not too bad managing the long. The problem is what's going to drive it down, because if what drives it down starts to become more fundamental, then why would I want a long in the market anyway? But if it's about, because it did have a bit of a tanking towards the end of last week. This is a 1 hour chart, and at the start of the day it was down there, and then it moved up again, and then we got the announcement of the all tanker being captured, you seized, yeah, and that started to push the market down. But by the time really the news had filtered through, the FTSE 100 had closed. But we can see it better expressed in the S&P where this happened. Which does suggest the S&P is coming lower, but in some respects you can't discard anything. You can't discount anything the way that this market rally has gone, because the indicators are all pointing for some downside. We've now got kind of price action which is below the pivot, so it would suggest downside, but it's happened a couple of times before and it hasn't really kind of shaken down. So I wonder whether this time it might actually work. It appears to me that setups work really well to the upside in stock markets, but to the downside, the fundamentals are much more prevalent and play a deeper role. So it might be that some sort of fundamental announcement has to come out before this market breaks down. But I could be wrong on that. If it breaks down, it breaks down, and I'll have to take it from there. But the other aspect of this, of course, is that the weekly pivot is in this area, and there's also a trend line in this area which is going to make it difficult to get through. But really, for right now, a move to the upside would be much more useful to me than anything else. What I don't really want to see is this kind of like just bashing between this point and the pivot, and bashing, because that's just going to suggest a break in either direction is going to be explosive, which doesn't serve anything for me.
But it does, I guess, go back to the populist theory, which is, when I say it, I mean the consolidation that we're seeing at the moment does go back to populist theory, that we do consolidate through these months of summer in European summers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. The big thing, of course, is that we've got the rate decision at the end of this week. So is it the end of this week? No, it's not this week.
Which FOMC?
Yeah, actually, no, it's the start, isn't it? Next Wednesday.
Yeah.
A week Wednesday.
Everyone has got 25 locked in for sure.
Yeah, except for Citibank. Yeah.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, Citibank are the only ones that are looking at 0.5. But you're right, absolutely right. Everybody else is 0.25.
So the only surprise would be, I guess it is still a surprise if they go to 0.5. So that will move the market. I've got no doubt about that. But what if they don't go at all? Doesn't seem likely, I know, but.
No, but if they don't go at all, I think we see a significant move. But you're absolutely right. What you're effectively pointing out, I think, is that I'm going to take these lines up because I find them very distracting. What we're talking about is the fact that it might be priced into the market. So what that suggests is that actually it becomes a bit of a kind of a dead announcement now. If it's already priced in, then obviously the market's not going to react on it anymore. So it becomes a bit of a dead announcement, doesn't it, from here on in?
Pretty much. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, I guess. What about, ECB? I read an article today suggesting that they're going to cut. Can't see it.
Yeah, cut from 0 to minus. Yeah, it has been said, mate. I mean, that was one of the reasons that we got. Let me show you. This move here. I don't know if you remember that. Actually, we were on the show. We were on the show live, and I was trying to get into this long, and it was a bark to get into. It worked out in the end, obviously, but it was a hideous trade. There was this one here, hideous trade to get into. It was just before the announcement came out. Then all of a sudden, it was announced that Draghi was going to announce further stimulus, and the market just started to go. So yeah, I think that maybe that's been baked in a little bit as well, because he didn't actually give specifics of that interview, to be fair, on that or that announcement, but he did mention that there would be they had further tools to react, and they would react. So the market did push higher from that particular announcement.
Yeah, look, it would surprise me, I've got to say, but the market constantly surprises me, so I don't see why I wouldn't be expecting something like that.
Yeah,
it would be interesting. And wow, what happens next? when they run out of tools, what happens? Is the funny well, is the question I ask myself, and they must be fast running out of tools.
Absolutely. And I think exactly the same thing. There is, a mountain pile of debt for all these governments. That they are interest rates are at historic lows. What's it going to take to topple it? And I guess it is some genuine weakness. And as you say, them running out of tools because they've already used a lot of them. And I did read something that Mario Draghi is now effectively throwing wood pellets at the problem rather than genuine bullets because he's kind of out and he's leaving it for Christine Lagarde to sort out. I don't know how she's going to fare any better. With coming in.
Well, she's got good credentials, I suppose, in terms of experience in managing finances. But yeah, what she got left? What can she do? Don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to wonder what the state of affairs would be on that front, and who would emerge actually, out of that. And I guess this is why America are quite worried about China. I don't know what China's debt is. It'd be interesting to know because if you look at the two economies, China growing at 6.6, I think it was the last reading GDP, and America around about 3.2. So they China are slightly more than double the American growth rate, or at least around the double mark. But America's debt is just astronomical. So you wonder, what's China's? Because if it isn't China, then you'd suspect that it would be China that would benefit from any kind of genuine global meltdown, and that would suggest that Donald Trump and all his trade war rhetoric is probably getting laughed at in China because they probably know that this could be the thing that genuinely brings the United States down and puts China. I'm sure this isn't the way they want it to play out because they don't want to take the lead position in this particular way because it does harm them. But they would probably emerge as the leading player in the globe, and maybe even in the longer term, it would actually be better for them all round.
Wish I had a recording of what I said about 5 years ago on one of these shows, which said exactly that. And everyone laughed at me. Ah, dear. Funny how things work, isn't it? But
yeah.
I was also reading something today in what is a fantastic book. It's all about managing. Well, it's not managing your risk. It's an expose on risk, and found it quite fascinating how talking about those sort of things where you tend to see something that's going to happen, but you tend to wait until it has happened before you do anything about it. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
Because if you're prepared to take that initial risk, then your reward is incredible. You've just got to manage that risk once you're there. That's the problem.
That's a really interesting. What is that book, mate? Because that sounds like being a trader.
It's called. It's in my bedroom. When you're doing some analysis, we'll go and get it. It's Jason Mamis, I think it's called.
Yeah.
And I can't remember The Nature of Risk. I think it is.
Okay.
Yeah, good book. Actually,
it sounds really good. Yeah,
but
I mean, who did?
Julian.
Oh, really?
And if I listen to Julian talk, there's a lot of what this dude says that is in Julie's psyche.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he must really get the theory,
right.
And it's really interesting book. Yeah.
Yes, The Nature of Risk. I've got it here. Interesting, but because as I say, it sounds like you're talking about the markets when you say that. It sounds like you're talking about the markets because isn't that no different than seeing a setup? And let's say you like for me, I'm in a trade in one direction, but I see a setup long. So if I don't take it, then I'm effectively putting myself at higher risk by ignoring what the charts are telling me.
Yeah, he speaks about. You can see what's happening, like let's say the market's falling, right? And instead of just saying, okay, the market's falling. I've got a buy order here. Let's sell. You think, oh no, it can't be right. It's going to turn around. It's
Yeah.
definitely going to turn around.
Yeah.
And then it continues to tank. Oh no, something's wrong. Something's
Yeah.
not wrong. Just sell the
Yeah.
bloody thing, you know.
Yeah. Interesting. I might have to buy this book myself, mate. Do you know what? I'm really I
I'll
go
give
through
it to Barley,
phases
mate.
with reading. I kind of, sometimes I'm really into it, and other times I just I get a little bit tired of looking at words. But I'm really back into it right now. I read a book that sparked my interest again called the Sapiens. It's called, and it's all about the tracking of the human species and what we've done to the planet effectively. Very interesting book. But
Oh my
from that,
God.
I kind of
That
I
sounds like a
read.
horror movie.
Yeah, it pretty much is. I mean, it turned me vegan. So well, I say vegan. I eat fish, a pescatarian, or whatever label they put on stuff now. But
Yeah.
it did turn me against meat and dairy. So it is a bit of a horror movie. But from there, I've kind of probably read another 5 books, really about mindset and a little bit of history as well. So this kind of thing, and I'm looking for a new one. I'm about a third through of my current one, and I could do with another one. So this one looks like it's a good book. So how far through are you on this?
Oh, mate, I just pick it up and read a little bit. So I'm like, unless I've got, a weekend or something, there's no way I can read a book because I forget what the last page was by the time I pick it up next, So I've got to reread it, which I guess at the end of the day isn't such a bad thing because it actually sinks in by the time I've read it. But,
Yeah.
reading for me is an extreme luxury, absolutely extreme luxury.
Oh, really?
I just don't allow myself the time to do it. That's why.
Yeah.
Because I'm always
Yeah.
doing something, I'm always either outside doing something around the farm, or I'm in here looking at charts or writing something, or goodness knows what. I just don't allow myself the time, unfortunately, because I
Are
actually
you
love to get into it.
Are you somebody who is good with kind of creating things with your hands, like building things? Are you good at building things?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm good at it. What I would say is I get results,
Right.
and the reason I say I'm not good at it is because I actually don't know what I'm doing when I pick up the tools. But by the end of the project, I've got it done.
Yeah.
I work it out.
Yeah. But does it by the time you turn around and walk back in the house blow down again?
No. Oh no. I'm a bit of a perfectionist.
Good.
If it's not right, then no, it gets done again.
I think you'd like this show we got over here called Escape to the Chateau, I think it's called, and it's all about this couple who move to France and do up a dilapidated castle. It's been running for 5 years now, and they did start filming them from the very, very beginning. So you've seen how the transformation of this
Okay.
of this castle, and they've made a business out of it. So they live in this 6 acres or something of worth of land, maybe more than that. I'm not sure, but they got this huge land, huge castle with a moat, and they've made it into a beautiful place, really lovely. But they've got a business off the back of it where they effectively host weddings
Right.
over there. So it's also got a kind of another sideline. But the guy in it, this couple, Dick and Angel. The guy in it is amazing with his hands. He just comes up with stuff, and one week he'll be building some sort of makeshift boat for his wife and his kids to kind of go out
God.
and float around on the boat. But it's a tiny little thing with a little flag on it and a little motor. And then another week he'll be excavating the land to go and plant loads of crops like plum trees and stuff. And he'll kind of. Yesterday was brilliant. He said I'm going to plant a plum tree at the front of the space, and a plum tree right at the back, because if I plant 2 plum trees along the same spot, then by the time one plum tree is given me the fruit, the other one will be the same. So I'll have too many plums. So if I plant them so the measurements means that one provides the fruit 6 weeks before the others, then I'll be able to eat these ones, and then when the other one starts to grow within 6 weeks, when the first one's crops eaten, then I'll be able to eat the other ones, and nothing will go to waste. And I
Love
thought,
it.
you know what, that's so simply brilliant. It's just logic. It's just brilliant logic that many people, certainly like me, I just wouldn't have thought of it. I'd be like, yeah, just stack the plum trees all along that bit. Then we'll go with the tomatoes or whatever else. But he really thinks things through, and he's brilliant, as I say, with his hands. He's completely renovated this place, and they've got some brilliant big structures, or as I say, sometimes you just be building a little boat or something, and I think you'd like it, mate. I think it'd be a
I
show
would
that you'd be quite into.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm into those sort of shows.
Yeah,
I won't say religiously watch the Lifestyle Channel, but when I do sit down and watch telly, it's either the sport or something like that. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
do. And you know, I do have a passion for it. I wish I had the time to devote to it. But
Well, look into it, mate.
I'm forever down the hardware store. There's no doubt about that. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm sure I've sponsored many hardware stores, kids through college. I don't have any doubt about it.
Yeah.
But as long as it's gone to a good cause, man.
So, before you tell me about retail, tell me about the markets. What are we looking at?
Okay. Yeah, look, it's a good question. I haven't really had a look since Thursday, but I'll have a look now. And when I say I haven't had a look, I'm in the market. I go into a euro pound short.
Oh, well done. I like that.
Not on this account, but I can show you where I got in. That's the euro chart. I don't know if you can see my charts yet. Euro pound. Okay. So we got into that late last week. But you know, that's under threat at the moment also. It'll be interesting to see. And you know, I got into the euro short as well. But that's out. I'm out of that now. So we got euro pound turning over, as you can see, and we got a break and retest of the daily pivot on on Wednesday, and I managed to pick it up down here at, what was the price? 89.88. So I got it a little bit late, and I can't even remember the bar that I traded. I didn't get in there. I got in at 89.88. What's the entry price? I was waiting for that lower high. That's right. And when I saw it, by the time I saw it here, I couldn't get in until this candle broke. I think it was a weird way to get into the market, but I just thought, I've got to get in here. I've just really got to get in. So we're into that, and that's going okay at the moment. If we can get a bounce off the daily pivot, I'll be feeling much better. But what I am seeing at the moment is a double bottom and potential for this to go back to retest this trend line. And if it does that, I will be out of this one as well.
When you're done with that, I'll give you some news about the pound, because there has been some news this weekend.
Oh, okay, cool. So, yeah, look, this may well be early days and may not be the right time, but just needed to get into this. You know, once I saw that bar there, I thought, okay, we've just got to have a crack. So we're into that. If we can hang on, happy days. If not, then I'll just look for another way. I am free trading it. I haven't got this at any risk at the moment, so that's all good. A little bit of a mess here, as you can see. If we do come back and retest this area, then there'll be issues. If we retest, I should have my stop loss still above the weekly pivot, but I haven't. I've moved it down to, I'll just check where that is actually. My stop loss is at, actually it is above the weekly pivot. Thought I moved it. We are at 90.01. Ah, that's where it is. That's where my stop is, exactly there. So we've got a little bit of protection at this point in time. As I said, I put myself in a safe position. We are free trading, but this to me looks very much like it wants to come back and retest something. What that is, and maybe it's this line, maybe it's the confluence area. I just don't know. It looks also to be a nice neckline forming here for mine. If we consider that to be a left shoulder, that to be a head, this really does look neckline material to me. And perhaps we will go back to here. And that's the kind of where I got my stop loss. So we will see. A little dip in the right shoulder here wouldn't be so bad. And that would be a very good signal, I think, for a potential in the short side. Let's go. Did you want to talk about the pound as we go back there?
Well, I can. Yeah, I mean, just to let you know what's going on this weekend. Interesting weekend actually, with the developments with the pound, because we had the current Chancellor Philip Hammond on a show on Sunday, effectively saying he won't serve under a Boris Johnson government, and he was one of the leading lights in the vote to stop a No Deal Brexit. He kind of came out and blocked the No Deal, the possible No Deal Brexit with David Gauke and some other members of Parliament. And it's just showing that Boris Johnson's going to have a tough old time pushing this through. And if that is the case, then that would potentially be good for the pound, you know. So the Boris Johnson getting in is not particularly positive, because he wants to push through this No Deal Brexit by the accounts he's giving right now. But
where are we now, by the way? Is he now anointed or is he not?
The vote's finished today. We'll get the announcement tomorrow.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So you know, in some respects, there's a little bit of positivity there with the pound. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, you know, it's pretty much a shoo-in. I think the fact that everybody's talking about Boris Johnson like he's already got the job is the one danger, because
yeah,
that's when you kind of get caught short. But I don't think Jeremy Hunt would be any better. The one thing is that, as I say, the senior ministers now are effectively backing this amendment to stop a no deal, and they're just not going to let it go through. He just doesn't have the majority, so he's got a fight on his hands, basically, Boris Johnson now.
Interesting.
Yeah,
but he's still. Well, not clearly, but it's still widely expected that he will get the nod tomorrow.
Yes, yep. Widely expected, yes.
Okay, so euro dollar, and we got into this short here. When was that? Thursday, or no? It was earlier than that, wasn't it? Last week? I can't remember. Let me see. That would have been Monday, Friday, Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Okay, we got into it early. And all we could get again was a little rally, well, not rally, a little sell down to the bottom of the current range. And bingo, back we went again. So this is starting to get a little bit interesting for me, because we've got now a range within a range, and that's kind of exciting. It is about a 70 pip range or something like that. That's just right up my alley. I should really put that in so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm sure you can, but there may be folk who cannot. So it probably starts, I don't know, let's call it that red line that I've got there, but we're probably in this area, I would have thought. Maybe a bit higher, maybe a bit lower. I'll go with that as the bottom of my range, which does coincide with this 112.06 as I've got it. You could maybe tighten that up a little bit on the top side. Maybe in there somewhere. But that's really cool, because I can now look at every single 30-minute candle and go, well, okay, if I've got a higher low here, I can trade this to the top side. Of course, we've got an interesting scenario here with the pivots very close together. I wouldn't be trading into those, but you know, a really good scenario right now would be if price went up to those pivots, bounced back off them, maybe just closed above one candle and came back here and gave me a nice higher low. Bingo, I've got a trade to the top side. Am I committed to anything in terms of direction for the euro? Look, no. And you've got to say that this is still in play. The double bottom is still, triple bottom is still in play. Higher low, higher high, higher high, higher low. Don't have a higher high. So we have gone into that consolidation period that I've just pointed out to you. But we haven't broken the lows yet. which is interesting. We've got a very strong support trend line under here, which I consider the line in the sand right now, I suppose. If that were to break, and I'm not expecting it to, but if it were to break, then we're going to retest these lows almost certainly, in my humble opinion. But it's not that far away, so it's not tradable as far as I can tell. So I'm not looking to trade the breakout short. So I'm really only looking for longs here, and not on the basis of a bullish bias by any stretch, but on the basis of, okay, we've now gone into a consolidation period. Let's try and trade that. And already on the 30-minute chart, I've probably got the higher low. I don't like it, I've got to say. I hate a candle like that. That doesn't suit me. But if we were to get something that equals that, maybe, and gives me a better candle, then I'm happy to trade this long, and not happy to trade it short, mate. So I guess on that basis, I'm a short-term bull, but I'm certainly not, if you know what I mean. I'm not a long-term bull. I'm an ambivalent euro dollar at the moment. I really don't know where it's going, and I think I've got good reason not to know, because the charts aren't telling me anything really. The one thing I suppose they are telling me is that we've had a false break of the top of this channel, and that doesn't bode well with what I've just said. What it rather looks like is a potential for this level to break and retest this 111.25 level. So yeah, maybe there is a play there, but it has to be break and retest for me, or come off a resistance area. I can't just trade this as a breakout short. I don't think that's a wise move for me, and I won't do it because there's too much support here. That's a pretty strong horizontal level through here, certainly in the year to date. Let's put it that way. So yeah, only longs today, unless this does break down, take out this low, and come back and retest this area. Then it looks interesting for a trade down to 111.25 area. So they're the two things I see on euro dollar. Cable, we didn't really talk about that too much, only in fundamental perspective. What I see on the charts is not what I want to trade. That's often the case, I've got to say. So you just got to use a little bit of common sense here and say, well, right, what is actually happening? And what is really happening is bloody confusing. Why? And I said this all last week, and I was of a long bias last week. Look, I don't know that I've changed, but I did say a close below these lows is an extreme bearish sign. Well, guess what? We didn't get a close below these lows on the weekly chart. What we did get was another reversal bar. Is that strong enough to trade? Look, again, it's a tough call, but I'm not completely against it, I've got to say. If I look again at where was I last week? Wasn't I trading a candle last week? I thought I had a hammer sitting here somewhere on cable. I certainly don't. Maybe that, yeah, little white bar. Okay. That I was trading until this was taken out. That's right. It's all coming back to me now. So I had a long entry above this bar, which obviously didn't get triggered, and fortunately so, as it turns out. But this is a repeat of that, just a little bit lower. Or am I fooling myself? Am I actually kidding myself, thinking that this is not a downward spiral on this cross? I'm not. I'm not 100% sure, to be fair. What I'd really like to see to convince me is price gets back above this trend line, of course, and then retest it. But like the man said about 10 minutes ago, I'm not sure who that bloke was, but he sounded a whole lot like me. If I've got this thing in my sights, then I've got to continue to trade it. And really, again, what I see is the failure of this double bottom to be closed below. Now, I know I'm putting a spin on that, and the spin is, well, in realistic terms, if you go to every other chart, bar that weekly chart, yes, we have had closes below on the daily chart, no question. But I'm not looking at the daily chart, I'm looking at the weekly chart. And the weekly chart's telling me that there's a potential really for another tweezer bottom sitting here. You know, you've got to use your discretion a little bit. But that's exactly what I'm seeing. I'm seeing another rejection of areas below the 125 mark. And that's pretty much where I'm at again. Am I willing now to just place another order long above this weekly bar with a stop below here? I don't know about that. And the reason is its area here is the only line of defense. And I don't know if that is going to stand up. This level stood up for quite a while. And again, it hasn't yielded in terms of a close below it. But gee, they've had a good crack at it, haven't they? And you can really see that in the chart. Look, the one thing I am tempted to do is replace the order I had last week, but move my stops from where they were down here to underneath this bar. That's what I am tempted to do. I'm not going to do it today, but I'm going to think about that over the next 24 hours. If we do shoot back up here for whatever reason, it would have to be a fundamental reason, one would think. If we were to shoot back up here, then I'll look for a second opportunity to get into it long. But yeah, look, this is still an interesting chart for me, and I don't want to run away from it. I'm technically in a long pound with the euro pound short, I guess. So I don't need to add to that right now, but I would like to have a very sharp eye on this cable chart. There's no question. Pound Aussie. Look, I get the whole world singing bullish Australian dollar at the moment. And the only reasons I can think that would be the case would be on the back of strong commodities. And I haven't checked the commodities, but or a weaker US dollar. They're the only two reasons I can think of that would be causing an Australian dollar or Australian dollar strength at the moment. But it appears to be the case. Let me have a look at the Aussie dollar and see how we're going right now. The daily chart is suggesting that it's not suggesting, it's actually shouting that we've had a break of this longer term trend line, which turns it into a bullish scenario, but we've come straight back below it as well. That looks really interesting from a slingshot point of view, I've got to say. And I haven't had a look at this chart before right now. In fact, that looks a very strong indicator to me. Let me see if I can actually trade that. Yeah, look, I don't see why I can't, to be fair. I might even do that, Ash. Yeah. Yep. What do we got? 52 versus 93. It's about 2 to 1 to there. Yeah, why not? Okay, I'm going to place that order right now. And again, it's Aussie dollar. It's something that is against my bias, but like I said,
risk is still there, isn't it, mate? This is the thing. It's I'm seeing the same as you. Yeah, I quite like that Aussie dollar as well. I like the 4-hour chart and the break and retest.
I'm going to go in small, but I've got to trade this. It's a logical set. Well, it's a classic setup, really. Entry is going to be at 70.82. Now, if you were looking to trade this, Ash, you'd be looking to get in, and probably mightn't be such a bad idea, just above there. Or you'd be looking to get in on the close of the bar, actually. But There's
one thing I do see on this one. This is a daily.
it's daily chart, yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I do see on this one is actually, yeah, that doesn't look too bad, does it? It doesn't look too bad. I'd probably want a break of the high. Yeah, I'd probably want a break of the high of that daily bar, purely because the last week's bar, Friday's bar, is a little bit of dark cloud cover, and it doesn't have a huge tail. If that had closed there with a nice tail at the lows, then I would suggest that that low has been tested and rejected a bit more successfully. So my personal stance would be that I'd want to see the high today broken on a shorter term time frame that I want to enter.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to put my stop loss at 70.25. So 0.7025, which gives us, pardon me, a 57 pip risk. We'll go to TP1 and we will get rid of 15 pips. We don't want that. What we do want, I can't see because of this box. Let me go wider. I might be able to see something. There we go. That's better. So TP1 needs to be, yeah. We'll say there, we'll call it 71.16. So 34 pips. We won't use 34 pips. We'll use 0.7114, I think I said. 16. 16? 16. And we'll get rid of a third off at that point, and we'll let the rest run. Our stop loss will still be the same. We won't move our stop loss. Be 57. So TP2 will disable, and we will buy. Okay, there we go. So entry here, TP1 here. Look, if you really want to be a bit more adventurous than I am, I think your TP1 could actually go right up here to that level, which is 71.66. So you could pinch another 50 pips there at TP1 if you wanted to. I think that's quite reasonable. That will certainly be my TP2. Okay, so the Aussie, we saw the Aussie out. We're now bullish the Aussie for reasons of which I'm not 100% sure, as I said before, but it seems we're with the whole world at the moment, from what I've been reading. That's Aussie CAD, but I'll go back to pound Aussie. That makes me, I guess, a pound Aussie bear.
Yeah, you were bullish on that before, weren't you?
Yeah, well, because of this. I mean, we're at the bottom of the range. We're at a horizontal level. I think I need to see this break down before I'm a bear, because we're in the buy zone right now. I can't be selling right now, so I'm going to leave that alone until it sorts itself out. But this has to break down, definitely, or get back to here before I can look to trade it short. No good. Aussie yen. Oh, that looks nice. Definite double top sitting here. We're maybe a double false break we might be witnessing. So price down to here, retest the top of the channel or rectangle, and we look to trade that short. Any thoughts of trading it long? No, not here. I need to trade off support, not resistance. So that's not for me. So I'm only looking to trade Aussie yen short. Let's see if that's even going to be possible in the short term. No, there's no trades here at the moment. But yeah, look, there's a big double top here. We do have a lower high. I'd really like to see this get back into here, come down, test the weekly pivot, try and get back above the daily and fail and give us a lower high there. And I think that's a nice trade down to there on Aussie yen. Interesting yen. And when you're talking Aussie bulls, you're talking risk off. Risk on. When you're talking Aussie bears, and in particular against the yen, Aussie yen short is definitely a risk off trade. And that, I think, is diametrically opposed. Well, I don't think, I know that Aussie yen trade is diametrically opposed to what I've just set on the Aussie. The difference being, if this does pan out to be a risk off market, then there's no way we're going here. We're not getting up to this level. But if it's a risk
well,
on
I'll tell you, mate, the way that the way the FTSE 100 is reacting currently, it's very much a risk on. Well, not very much, but it is a risk on. You know, the market popped down, and it's just shoved its way all the way back up again. It's just testing the weekly pivot. So if it breaks through this trend line that I showed you earlier on, then risk certainly on the FTSE's to the upside. The S&P is just slightly gaining as well. Dow Jones up a shade. The big thing is going to be looking across the board. You know that the DAX is currently easing to the upside as well, as is the CAC and the Euro 50 as well. So. China 50 is which maybe it's not the Hang Seng actually. That might be Hang Seng is down. Maybe that's on some of the Hong Kong tensions. But generally speaking, the European markets are moving to the upside, and the American market futures are also moving to the upside. It's slightly trapped in a range, so we'll see if it breaks out. But certainly on the shorter term, risk is on.
Okay, cool. Then that Aussie yen trade short probably won't even set up if that's the case. We'll probably look to take on these highs, but we'll see. Anything can happen at any time. What else do I want to look at? Euro pound. We've had a look at that, and this really has got a little bit of a wriggle on to the upside. So the pound is not looking good currently against the euro. How's it looking against the Aussie? Holding its own, and against the dollar, able to go to a smaller time frame, I suppose. Yeah, look, even that's setting up. I like that for long as well. Oh dear. CAD yen I want to have a look at as well. The market structure seems to have changed a bit on that. We were in a range, and now that's interesting actually. That's been broken. We've now come back and retested that, having put in a double top and a lower high. This is interesting. CAD yen. Oil. You've got to be thinking oil's got a rally, haven't you, Ash? Haven't you got to be an oil bull at the moment? Because what's going on?
I would say so. I mean, you know, with all this tension in the Strait of Hormuz, you've got to say that supply will be probably affected by that.
Well, disrupted.
Yeah, as you say, at least disrupted. Interesting to see. I'm just going to bring in WTI very, very briefly onto my screen and see what I've got, because it's interesting. I think that oil has not yet created a right shoulder, and I wonder whether we are at a bit of a slanted neckline. If you look on your daily chart, I wonder whether we're on a bit of a slanted neckline, which is an area of support. So, you know, taking the low of 24th of June and extrapolating that out to the 2nd of July, that snaps us to the low that we experienced on Thursday. Have you got? I'm not sure if you got that. I'm just looking at one other thing before I switch to have a look at your chart.
24th of June to on the daily chart?
Yeah, 24th of June to the is it the 2nd of July?
I don't have anything on the daily chart that looks like a trend to me.
3rd. Let me just double check what you got. Yeah, so 24th of June. So rather than having that that line going up like that, if you take the start of that line back to that spinning top doji, so you got that really big bullish explosion to the upside, and then the spinning top doji.
Yeah. Okay.
Not there. So next bar going one bar along. Yeah, and then one more. That one, that low there. If you look at that and then and then bring the line down.
Can't grab the bloody thing. Come here.
Yeah, that happens to me quite a lot. There you go. Bring the line down to that low. That kind of suggests that we could be looking at a slanted neckline. So that would also suggest that the upside has got some room to travel. Maybe the weekly pivot holds it up, but it would suggest that if you were to duplicate that particular line, I don't know if you can do that.
The way I do that is just go and grab the tool.
Yeah, fine. Yeah, then grab the tool instead, and bring that down to so it's touching the right shoulder high. Yeah, or maybe even the close. Difficult to know which it would be, but yeah, somewhere around about there. That would be something of a target that I would look for on oil to the upside.
Yeah, I don't mind that actually. The bar's a bit big to trade, but it's sitting there. How are we looking on the 4 hour? I don't see a trade right now, but yeah, I totally see what you're saying. Okay, that's interesting. So CAD may be coming back into favor. Had some bad news on Friday, I think it was. Wasn't disastrous, but yeah, what I'm seeing here, this has got to get back above this line here. CAD yen for me to be thinking about along. And at the moment, really from a technical point of view, I'm actually seeing shorts. This for me is a sell zone right here. Issue is weekly pivot and daily pivots. I'll have to stay out of this one as well. I don't really have anything else I want to talk about at the moment, made apart from yen. Are we risk on? Are we risk off? But you're saying potentially we're risk on, and if that's the case,
yeah, I mean, I'll show you my chart. I'll show you my chart just because you may sure. Get some perspective on it. It's a tricky one, you know, and the information really hasn't filtered completely through. But there's an upper trend line here which has been respected now a couple of times. We've also got this weekly pivot. The market this morning has had some pretty vicious price action where might be better to see this on a 5-minute chart. But on the 5-minute chart, we see it shoved. This is the opening bar, bang down. Then the next bar was all the way back up again. A little bit of a contentious bar, but we exploded back to the weekly pivot, and it's just rejecting that weekly pivot. So, if anything, at this stage, it looks a little bit indecisive to bullish. But I think maybe the most significant thing is that it's not bearish, and we've had price action that would suggest that if the chart was going to break down, it had every excuse to do so. When we popped forward, came down, created that lower low, the lower high. We got quartz here, but we got this bar, which this bar was interesting because it kind of tested the range of the setup bar. I mean, it doesn't look like a setup bar, but it became a setup bar for those short-term bears to come into play. And this bar tested the low of that, and it looked like any price action that was going to exist under this level would actually start to see as waterfall to the downside. But that hasn't come into play. But we still have to respect the fact that we are on these pivots and we are on the trend line. So for it to be genuinely bullish, it would have to take this area out. But it's giving it a bit of a it's giving it a bit of a go at this particular stage. And if that happens, you've got to be looking at the highs again before we come down, and maybe not even those highs. Maybe it's these highs up here. So because this is then going to start looking like a potential channel. Now that the FTSE 100 doesn't look like it's going long by any but doesn't look like it's going long by any stretch. But it's not able to break down. And you have to wonder what it is going to be that does break it down. That takes us right back to these highs up here back in July. So if the FTSE breaks up here, then we may well see some price action that leads us all the way back up here again, which would leave risk back on the table. But as I say, the technicals really seem to play out a lot better, certainly when it comes down to stock markets, to the upside than it does to the downside. And the only thing that we can look for to assume at this stage anyway, the only thing that we can look for to assume that there might well be some risk coming off the table is to be quite in tune with the news and data releases. So far, we've got Jerome Powell that is he's out in 9 days' time. Now, we haven't checked Forex Factory this morning, which
the
is
pound looks as though it's about to tank big time.
well, that is no huge surprise, and that would actually sustain a FTSE 100 rally. And you telling me that sounds interesting, because the S&P really still looks like some weakness could come into play. So the FTSE 100 may well be really its own beast today, purely off what you're telling me with the pound. We'll have to stay quite close to what's potentially driving the pound, but we don't need too much when it comes down to the fact that we got a leadership. The announcements tomorrow. The votes are counted today, so we'll probably start to see some movement. So there could be some positioning going on with the pound, regardless of anything else. And I think a Boris Johnson premiership announcement is likely to be perceived badly. But the question really comes down to, why would they be trading so late when this has been flagged for quite some time? So it may well be a little bit of a can't think what just a dead cat bounce, if you like. We might actually see the pound tank to the downside, give us a dead cat bounce, and get right back to where we are. Yes, it looks weak, but that weakness, I would thought, would subside fairly quickly, because the market knows what's going on here.
Okay, well, it has hit very short-term support, but it looks very, very, very much like the early traders have said, no, we're going to get rid of this thing. We don't want it.
Yeah,
we don't want it at all. We'll see.
Which is understandable, isn't it? With a announcement tomorrow that would be negative, a net negative for the pound. Yeah, I can see what you're saying there. It does look very, very weak, doesn't it?
Sure does.
That pound looks, and what you're telling me about that book, this is just basically saying sell, just sell.
It certainly is. Pound Aussie's off 50 pips in the first 30 minutes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this particular stage, I could do with it, because I don't like to see pound weakness, but I could do with a little bit of weakness out there, because if it's going to drive my FTSE hedge to the upside, that makes me a lot more comfortable that I've got that safety in line. Because really, what I'd love to see happen is a long-term move to the upside over, well, let's say long-term, let's say a week or two's move to the upside, and make my trade really safe, because I think there's some downside coming. This market, as you mentioned earlier on, and I think you're absolutely right, surely has to be running out of tools that can sustain it. The trade war still lingers on in the background, and I don't hear too much that would suggest that's going to end anytime soon. Market data from the USA continues to be net positive, and it might only take a couple of bad readings from that for the market to move to the downside as well. So we could be ending the business cycle, or nearing the end of the business cycle. But if it's not ready yet, then I'm quite happy to ride a decent wave to the upside, and it'd be fantastic to see another wave to the upside. Just so when it comes down, maybe we come down a lot harder. I don't know, but right now with the account that I'm trading in the balance, a decent move up would just be great for me.
Yeah, look, the one thing is, I suppose, that we we can't know what is to happen, but we can only go by what has happened in the past. That's another one out of that book, frankly, and it's very true. And you get people who ask, because people know you trade currencies, you get people who ask you all the time, what's the Aussie going to do? How would I know? I've got no
Yeah.
idea. Absolutely no idea. All I can do is follow what the charts are telling me. Simple as that.
Yeah. Well, I've just checked the news data for the release. The big news really this week is Thursday with the ECB press conference, and given what happened last time, if you looking at the statement you just made about looking at what happened in the past, that would suggest that would be net positive for the market as well. But apart from that, there's not too much this week, mate. So it looks like we could have a bit of a quiet week, and I suspect we're probably going to be dipping into this room for a shorter period this week, because I don't know, maybe we see some setups, but I'm hoping we get a decent move to the upside, and if that's the case, then my job is going to be a lot lighter. My work is going to be a lot lighter than if it crashes from this point to the downside if I haven't got my hedge at break even. So,
mate, if there's nothing of interest, then we'll simply go and do something else. Too easy.
One thing
We haven't looked at though, how did our Bitcoin gap go?
Ah, good point, mate. Oh, I'd almost forgot. I was telling my hairdresser about that on Thursday. He's a Bitcoin trader,
Oh, okay.
and I told him last time the Bitcoin looks a little bit weak here, and I don't like to kind of
interrupt other people's
show off
process.
when I get things right, because I'm just as wrong as I am right with the market, and it's not really about anything else. But I did tell him, and he didn't take his profit, and he was asking me what he should then trade with, and I said, well, you still can't discount Bitcoin. No gap today. No gap today with Bitcoin. So the gap that we saw last week would have given us some profit, and let's see if it would have been break even from the. Actually, would have had to enter. Well, we have to tidy up our entries, but let's say that we got in right at the worst potential point. Yeah, wouldn't have even given us a 50% worth of profit in the end. But I suspect what probably would have happened is we would have had stops at break even. So the first one, let's call it a net break even, because as this breaks down, we would have moved our stops to break even, and then we would have been taken out. So we are flat on Bitcoin in our virtual world. Yes. But inverted head and shoulders looks quite tasty on Bitcoin, but it's not our strategy. So we're going to wait for that gap, see if it forms next Monday instead.
We might be grey before it pops up again. We might not get a gap for the next 4 years or something.
Yeah, that could be the nature of this beast, couldn't it?
Well, it could well be, absolutely. The only thing we didn't talk about is gold. And I'm sure we'll hear a bit more about that in the show later on.
Yeah, do you know what? There's a very famous trader that I'm sure you're aware of, by the name of Ray Dalio. Are you aware of that guy? Apparently, the most successful trader on the planet. Very interesting character. Well, he's a very interesting character. He is he's a stock market trader. I mean, he'll trade what's out there, but he's a fascinating character and a very, very intelligent guy. I think he called the crash he called a crash in the 80s. And it didn't happen because he'd done all his research on it, and it hadn't happened, and I can't remember. I can't remember how it turned around, but they called him into Congress. He's a very, very kind of influential guy, and he lost all his money, but he's built himself right back up again. And you should watch him on TED Talks because he talks about robots and how decision making in robots is something that his company has now taken on. But the reason I mention him is that on Friday last week or Thursday, he said that you've got to have gold in your portfolio right now. So the fact that Ray Dalio's calling on that would probably drive a few people towards some gold. I've got a bit of an issue with the price here, and it might just be a little bit of regret more than anything else, because when we kind of look at gold's price to always try and get in on is around about 700, isn't it? But you know, we haven't had anything here, but there were opportunities here. You know, there were. I think Julian was talking about a long gold at this particular area, and look at it now. It's just gone, and it's continued to fly. So I'd be a little bit skeptical, a little bit like the stock market, and a little bit like the euro pound actually as well. That's got so overreached that that it would make me a little bit nervous about trying to buy gold. You know, because I think you'd have to have fairly deep pockets to get in at this particular level.
I've never traded in my life. I don't see why I'd be jumping in now. There's definitely
yeah,
no way
well, this is it. I mean, the indicators suggest that the monthly's got some room still to travel. The weekly is overbought and embedded, so so that's a dangerous area to try and get in. The dailies, when I show you this, are where are you? Here we go. The dailies, when we look at this on the daily chart, it's just looking like this is the weekly, so that's overbought and embedded up there on the indicator. The daily is just starting to show some divergence, which also is a bit of a nervous play for me on gold. But by the same token, we can't discount what's going on or discard what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. Again, you know, any kind of tension in the world, gold tends to be a little bit of protection, and we also have rate decisions which could actually affect inflation. And we know that gold traditionally has been a hedge against inflation. So I suppose the data and fundamentals suggest some further upside, but I would not want it at this particular level myself.
No, same. But it goes back to what we said from the outset. You know, if it's saying buy it, buy the bloody thing.
Yeah,
but I'm not going to. I refuse to. It's just no. If it was something I traded all the time, I might consider it. But I've never traded it in my life. So why on earth would I start now?
Why start now? Yeah,
makes no sense to me. If it came back to retest the breakout level, I might be interested. But you know, no,
not yet. Okay, mate. Well, I reckon that's
everyone's calling it the 1700-1800, and probably I'll just watch it go to there and say, well, and I won't be the slightest bit annoyed by that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, mate. I'm the same when it comes down to gold. I've very rarely traded it myself, and those particular price targets I find a little bit nervy as well. I just don't understand the commodity enough. You know, I understand it a bit, but I don't understand it enough to understand the intrinsic value and where it could go. So I stay pretty much well away from it these days.
Yep. You don't have to trade everything that moves. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And as we always say, it ain't compulsory. You just sit there and wait till your setup comes.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, mate, we're going to go, eh?
Yeah, we are. I think it's time to knock on the head. And we'll be back.
A couple of hours, 2 hours and 16 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever it is. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, buddy. Well, enjoy the few hours you have, and I will speak to you right then, and I'll also see you same trade time, same trade channel tomorrow.
All right, mate. Happy days.